Hi all of you awesome scuba divers out there, welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine channel and welcome to Ask Mark, our scuba diving Q&A. Why Mark, a former dive instructor, do my best to answer your scuba diving questions. If you do have any scuba diving questions, pop them down in the comment section underneath this video and use this hashtag somewhere in the comment, doesn't really matter which as long as it's in there. That highlights it behind the scenes and then I do my best to actually type out an answer so you get an answer sooner rather than later. The community does an awesome job, well done everyone for answering questions as well. So yeah, if you do have any questions, pop it down below, and if it's a really interesting question, then I'll turn it into a video. Today I'm answering a question from Victor about mixing and matching regulators and second stages and whether that affects the servicing schedules. So Victor says, hello, I just bought the Helix Compact Pro regulator from Aqualung. Aqualung says you only have to overhaul the regulator every 2 years. If I were to hook up a regular Octo to the Compact Pro regulator, would I have to service the Octo more frequently than the primary Compact Pro? So yes, technically, this is one reason why a lot of regulators have an Octo that matches them. They come as like a matching set. So so like with this XL4 regulator, you'll have an XL4 Octo. That way, when it's getting serviced, they're both, I mean, these are pretty much the same second stage, just with a different face job on it. That way, it's all pretty universal. If I were to mix out, I mean, granted, that's not really going to happen and that's not really an Octo. But if you're going to mix it, especially in your situation where you have a regulator with a 2-year service schedule, like the Helix, which kind of is and kind of isn't. There's a 1-year annual inspection in between. So a bit like cylinders with a hydro and a visual test, except this time you have a regulator inspection annually, and then the next one is a service, and then the next one's an inspection, and then a service. If you miss the service, or if you miss an inspection, then it goes back to the service. But anyway, that's by the by. If you have a regulator like that, and then you fit any other second stage to it that only has a single year service schedule, you have to take that Octo in for a service every year. It's quite convenient with you because you might as well just bring the entire set in and just go, okay, the first and the second stage, they don't need servicing, they just need inspecting, whereas my Octo does need servicing. They can service the Octo, and because it's all fully attached, they can pressurize it and balancing it and all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you do just bring in the individual component, sure, they can service that, but it might not balance to the interstage pressure that your regulator is kicking out. So the short answer is, yeah, you would have to bring it in yearly to get that alternate, that Octo serviced. The rest of your regulators won't need that annual service, but whilst they're in there servicing the Octo, they might as well inspect the rest. You might find, depending on the service center, you might find some pushback on them reassembling the regulator. I don't know how much like truth was behind it, but I was always taught that no, especially if it's like different brands, do not mix brands, or at least don't put it back together. You can service it. You can like replace the O-rings and all that kind of stuff, reassemble it, but then it all just gets given back to the customer, not in pieces, but in individual components. They'll fit it to the hose, that's all right, but they won't fit that hose onto the first stage. That's kind of something that the customer has to do, especially if you're like mixing brands and stuff. If it's the same brand, then that really kind of muddies the water. This is why I usually recommend just sticking to the like dedicated Octos that are designed for that regulator set, because it just eliminates all of that like confusion. Yes, it's a XL4 and an XL4 Octo, boom, they go together. Whereas if it's a different combination, because they need to be like ANSI tested and put through all the EN250 kind of tests and all that kind of stuff. And if that particular regulator combination hasn't, then it's a real kind of gray area, and it's up to the technician whether they want to like reassemble it. I know some technicians that wouldn't. They would, as I said, just they service it, they change all the O-rings and everything. They do the best to like balance it, but they wouldn't fully reassemble the regulator and give it to you, unfortunately. It's just the way it works. I was told that the service center then becomes like the manufacturer or something. Thinking about that, that doesn't really sound particularly true, but that's the legal side of things that I'm not an expert in. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, you would need to service your you'd need to service the Octo every year, but not the rest of your regulators. But in your case, you need to bring your regulators in every year anyway, so might as well. Another thing is, if it's a different brand, you don't know if that particular service center can service both brands. There are like geo restrictions for particular like dealer locations. You can't have two of the same brand dealers too close to one another to avoid competition. Yeah, it might be that one service center can service part of your regulator, but they can't service the Octo, so you then have to send the Octo off. It all gets very complicated, so it's just easy just to stick to the same one. Yeah, I tend to get around it by one, just trying to stick to the same brands, but also diving twins, so then you only have a single second stage coming off of each first stage. But yeah, and it's why I don't usually recommend mixing like first and second stage brands, because it just gets complicated, and trying to get them serviced is a real pain. But yeah, it basically comes down to like the O-rings, the O-ring materials and all that kind of stuff. Some regulators will have clever like mechanisms on the inside. A lot of Atomic Aquatics, they have a not the AFC, a DFC, dynamic, no, not that one. It has a little mechanism where it retracts the sealing surface from the seat, so it doesn't bed in quite as much. And like the O-rings will be made from different materials. We get different materials for our O-rings. Some of them get quite hard and brittle if they're left in storage for too long, or if they're used too much. They can start to fray and disintegrate, so they need replacing, usually after about a year or so, depending on how much use. But with newer materials, then you can extend that to like 2 years or something. So your Helix Compact Pros probably have a better material that those O-rings are made from, or some clever mechanism on the inside. I haven't pulled one apart yet. That may just allow it to work over 2 years, but it all depends on like use. If you're using it professionally, then it's worth servicing it more frequently. It's not like you have to wait 2 years, because the more you use it, the more chance of like wear and tear is going to increase. So you need to get them serviced. It's not as like black and white as 2 years, 200 dives or whatever it is. It's kind of up to you to get it serviced diligently. But yeah, if you do start mixing second stages, then yeah, you have to go to, well, you can service each individual component according to its servicing guidelines. Any other questions, by all means pop them down in the comment section underneath this video. We're also working quite closely with the documentary Diving into the Darkness, which is an awe-inspiring odyssey about cave diving icon Jill Heinarth and her journey of self-discovery and resilience as she defies the limits of human exploration beneath the Earth's surface. It's coming soon. I'm not exactly sure how much I'm allowed to talk about it, but you can head over to their website, divingintothedarkness.com. I'll pop a link down in the description below. I listened to one of her audiobooks years ago, just a true inspiration. So yeah, you're going to be hearing more about this on the channel as I delve a little bit deeper, and I'm hopefully going to be talking to the documentary makers. But yeah, divingintothedarkness.com, check it out. Check out all their social media channels and all that kind of stuff. Afterwards, you can always head over to our website, scubadivermag.com. Check out our magazine, everything that we do over there. Like, share, subscribe, do all that good social media stuff. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.